Rain washed over King's Landing in gray sheets that muted banners and turned dragon soot to sluggish rivulets along the cobbles. Smoke still coiled over the skeletal remains of the dragon pit, but the bells tolled all the same, proclaiming a peace won in blood. At the top of Aegon the Conqueror's Hill, Rhaenyra Targaryen stood before the shattered Iron Throne, her black armor scratched and stinking of wildfire, her silver-gold hair unbound and plastered to her shoulders. The hall lay half in ruin, vaulted windows spider-webbed from the shock of dragonfire, marble columns scorched and spalling, but it thrummed with the press of lords who had bent the knee these past 9 days. Few gazed at the throne. Most watched the queen, waiting to see whether victory would mend or break her. When Rhaenyra lifted her visor, the hush was total, broken only by rain tickling through the broken roof. Her face was haggard, but her eyes, lilac and unblinking, held the room with something like pity. 6 dragons lie dead, she said, her voice rough from smoke and grief, and half a kingdom besides. Yet every man who died for me, and every woman who buried them, did so believing in the right of the firstborn, not the firstborn son. Were I to claim my crown while leaving that old rot within our laws, their ghosts would shriek through these halls as loudly as the babe that never drew breath in my womb. And I should deserve their curse. Rainwater spattered on melted iron where Ser Criston Cole had fallen. The queen stepped around it, letting the hush stretch, daring any to break it. No one did. In the sight of the 7, she went on, and by the memory of dragons much greater than any now living, I do hereby proclaim that no cock shall rule this realm in place of the womb that bore it. From this hour, the crown of the Undulls, the Rhaenyra, and the first men shall pass to the eldest child, not the eldest son, and may the gods strike me down if ever I break this word. Outside, thunder boomed like a distant drumming of wings. Rhaenyra drew Blackfire from its scorched scabbard and thrust the sword point down into the step below the throne. Iron shrieked against stone. The sound carried into every murmuring corner. Final, terrible, and true. The realm's deliberations stretched from that grim dawn into a fortnight of wary feasting. Rhaenyra let the Stormlords who had warred against her stand witness at every council, so the new order should be hammered in full view of former foes. Her maesters drafted scroll after scroll repealing precedents laid since the days of Aenys and Maegor, and the Septons whispered that the queen risked holy wrath. Rhaenyra listened, eyes hooded, and then bade them write twice as many decrees ensuring that daughters might inherit castles, guild charters, and even the white cloak of a Kingsguard knight should their skill prove worthy. Write slowly, she told them, so the ink may settle in your hearts while it dries. While ravens carried her proclamations, the queen summoned the small folk before the Red Keep's broken gates. She did not speak from a balcony, but walked among them. Simple will cloak thrown over her battle-scarred mail, and let them see her limp from a half-healed gash along her thigh. You have lost sons and husbands, she said, but so have I lost brothers, and a son still in swaddling. Let our widows and mothers bind together and see what power may bloom where swords have reaped. Coins stamped with her crowned profile passed from her hand into theirs. Dragon's breath caught in silver, a promise of rebuilding. Beyond the city, dragons haunted the scorched riverlands. Caraxes circled Harrenhal's melted towers like a silent crimson judge, guarding the hostages of House Strong. Syrax nested in the charred stump of a holdfast by the Blackwater, brooding over 2 eggs rumored to have hardened black as onyx during the fighting. The people learned to bow at the passing of great wings, not in fear but in recognition that those wings shielded the new law born of a woman's right. Bards wove verses that the realm had been a sun-ruled orchard where fruit rotted under greed. Now a daughter had pruned the rot with dragonfire, and buds of justice would sprout. Yet peace was a gown sewn with hidden pins. In Oldtown, the high tower raged behind shuttered windows, calling Rhaenyra's edicts an abomination that mocked the faith. Ser Gawain Hightower's squire brought word that more than one septon now preached open refusal to swear fealty under female succession. Across the seas, the Triarchy sniffed at weakness and considered reclaiming the stepstones. Rhaenyra received each raven and pressed her seal without tremor. If they challenge a mother's crown, she told her council, we will answer as mothers do, with the ferocity that bore every man they might send. Winter's first breath came early, carrying brine and distant siren calls of morning whales along the narrow sea. At Dragonstone, Rhaenyra climbed to the chamber where the painted table stood and traced her finger along Westeros' jagged coasts. Each flick of nail against wood was a memory. Blood in the driftmark surf, the hiss of Alicent's green gown, Daemon's laugh when he gifted her a stolen kiss of fire. Now Daemon was gone, lost in the river of time and war, his rumors drowned beneath the roar of Carrix's final fall, and the dance that had begun with a kiss of nostalgia ended with a queen alone among shadows. She called Lord Cregan Stark south for a council of queens. Some scoffed Winterfell's wolf would never kneel to so bold a summons, but Cregan arrived in autumn, snow still crusting his cloak from the neck. He brought his sister, Rhaenyra, steel-eyed and steady on horseback. Rhaenyra received them in the Dragonstone courtyard, where Syrax's muffled rumble shook frost from the stones. "Your decree was a wind that carried even to our cold keep," Cregan said. "The North remembers promises, and it remembers betrayals. Show us this new tree you would plant, and the wolves shall watch it grow." Rhaenyra led them to the hatchery's glow, candles flickering gold over eggs banded in purple and jade. "To plant a new order," she told them, "we must first tend the oldest roots. Dragons must belong not to battles alone, but to law, to balance. I will tie Dragon Rider and keep, crown and hold fast, through marriages that bind every region to the flame of change." Rhaenyra Stark stepped close to an egg-veined silver blue and did not flinch at the warmth. "I see you mean to forge more than a parchment pact," she said. The dragon egg pulsed beneath her gloved palm like the slow heartbeat of the realm itself. So began the pact of blood and frost, first of a dozen unions Rhaenyra would weave. The queen's surviving sons would wed daughters of the Vale and the Reach. Her nieces, Baela and Rhaena, would be courted by heirs of Dorne and the Westerlands. Each betrothal scroll bore the clause henceforth known as the Queen's Womb. The firstborn heir, regardless of sex, shall succeed. Only the Dornish smiled outright. Elsewhere lords balked, yet they signed, for dragons prowled overhead like watchful gods. In the hush of one dawn, as gulls wheeled over Spindrift cliffs, Rhaenyra wrote a personal letter to Alice Rivers at Harrenhal, pardoning the witch's rumored bastard babe if the mother would swear fealty. The missive bore no royal flourish, only 6 words after her seal: "All children deserve their mother's sky." That letter traveled further than raven's wings. It spread in whispers through villages and market towns, where mothers tucked it into lullabies and fathers repeated it by firesides until it anchored in the realm's marrow. War lingered in memory even as harvests returned. Caravans carried grain from the Reach into storm-blighted marches, and the crown's coin paid double to any widow who oversaw the re-roofing of a sept or the rebuilding of a bridge. The men-at-arms grumbled that gold spent on widowers' tools bought fewer swords, but the queen overruled them with a wave of her scarred hand. "Let swords rust," she said. "Sharp minds and quick quills will guard us now." She appointed a council of learned women: Lady Samira of Bravos, who calculated shipping tariffs with an abacus of pearl; Sabella Caltigar, whose treatise on dragon heritage filled 3 vellum volumes; and Grand Maester Idarla, Archmaester Vaegon's most gifted pupil, recalled from the citadel against the Archmaester's protest. When some cried scandal at a female Grand Maester, Rhaenyra's reply was swift: "Would you deny healing to your sons because the hands were gentle?" The new council's first mandate reformed inheritance of trade guilds, allowing daughters to claim the keys to counting houses and shipyards. The Triarchy envoy balked, warning such policies would draw pirates emboldened by perceived weakness. The queen invited him to sit astride Syrax for a dusk flight about the Blackwater Rush, chainmail rattling under gales of wings. When they landed, the envoy's beard was frosted with fear sweat and sea spray. He bowed so low his forehead brushed the mud. Trade agreements followed without more quibble. In White Harbor, women fishmongers painted the Queen's Womb upon their boats, a spiral of 2 dragons coiled about an egg, and hauled record catches. In Maidenpool, where half the town lay charred, children rebuilt the wooden playkeep with turrets made of driftwood, crowning its twig battlements with tiny flags embroidered with Rhaenyra's sigil by their mothers' aching fingers. In Riverrun, Minisa Tully taught the firstborn daughters of lesser lords the forms of sword and quill side by side, until parchment ribbons fluttered on practice blades like banners of dawn. Yet seeds of dissent rooted in darker soil. High Septon Baldrich denounced the queen from the starry September's pulpit, declaring male line succession, the natural seed ordained in stone by the Seven. His sermons fanned embers in Oldtown streets, where Hightower men looked to the towering beacon and whispered of forgotten dragons. Some roving zealots took the royal road north, tearing down tavern signs that featured women in positions of authority, replacing them with crude drawings of crowns burning in palm-sized flames. When these zealots reached Bitterbridge, they found armored women atop destriers, banners black and gold, a column commanded by Lady Sabria Blackwood, who read the Queen's edicts aloud before stringing her bow. Not one zealot survived to carry their outrage farther. In the 3rd year of her reign, Rhaenyra gathered lords and ladies for the harvest moot on the fields beyond King's Landing, erecting pavilions stitched of scarlet and smoke-gray silk. Each tent was gifted by a different noble house, the entire circle forming a wheel whose spokes converged at a raised platform of humble oak. There, in the open air, the Queen unveiled her greatest gambit, the Covenant of 12 Queens. Each of the 7 kingdoms, and Dorne, still technically beyond the crown's grasp, would see its most capable daughter chosen as handmaiden of the realm, sworn to rule in council with the Queen's heir once that heir reached manhood or womanhood. In effect, a permanent chamber of female regents would share royal power, ensuring no future king could overturn the new laws without first silencing a dozen queens in all but name. "The realm shall breathe with 2 lungs," Rhaenyra pronounced. "One of men, one of women. Only together will it live." Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Outrage clashed with awe, but curiosity triumphed. For 2 days and nights, nominations thundered until lists of candidates fluttered thicker than autumn leaves. By dawn of the 3rd day, 12 names stood inked in crimson wax. Maya Stone of the Vale, who knew every hidden pass. Lady Johanna Lannister, flame-haired and deft with ciphered ledgers. Nymeria Sand of Dorne, blade-quick and silver-tongued, and 9 others, each formidable in craft or sword or mind. At sunset, golden lanterns cast their glow upon Rhaenyra's pale cheeks as she knelt before each chosen woman, offering her buckled gauntlet in homage rather than demanding theirs. One by one, they clasped her wrist, and fire leapt along the braziers as if dragons breathed approval from afar. The realm had been unmade and remade under that flickering light. It was then that the Red Keep's gates groaned open, and a solitary boy rode forth. Aegon the Younger, his face wan but his bearing resolute. He dismounted and strode to his mother's side, the air between them heavy with all they had lost: brother, father, innocence. Without words, Rhaenyra placed a small circlet upon his brow. Not iron and ruby, but simple Valyrian steel hammered thin, etched with the Queen's womb. The symbol of a new line, an heir born of a mother's victory, destined to share his rule. The crowd's roar rolled like surf breaking upon cliffs. Some shouted in jubilation, others in shock, but none could deny the smell of turning seasons in the wind. Years passed in measured breaths. Rhaenyra's once unbound hair now ran with thin streaks of winter white, but her will remained ironclad. The Red Keep's scorched stones were repainted in deep umber and pearl, corridors lined with tapestries depicting Visenya and Rhaenys astride Meraxes and Vhagar, flanking Rhaenyra on Syrax, as if the 3 sisters of fire at last reigned together. Merchants hawked children's primers titled The Crown of Daughters. Stories of Rhaenyra the just spread as far as Bravos, where slave mistresses whispered of revolts yet unseen. The Queen's enemies had not slept. In the west, corsairs of the Triarchy raided supply ships, emboldened by rumors that dragons grown complacent would no longer protect every sail. Along the Mander, bandits emerged who pledged to restore the old order of trueborn sons. They scrawled 7-pointed stars on barn doors and caused chaos enough to slow grain tithes. Rhaenyra answered with a host led by her niece Baela, now rider of a sleek jade-scaled dragon named Tessarion Reborn. They swept the Mander banks in a fortnight, driving zealots to ground. Those captured were given a choice: take the Black, to serve at a night's watch now open to women, or face the Queen's justice. Most chose the wall. A few knelt and wept, claiming revelation. Baela sent a raven. Justice tasted sweeter served by a woman's hand. North of White Harbor, Lady Alyra Stark, now wed to Jacaerys, Rhaenyra's eldest surviving son, oversaw a census of holdfasts to ensure daughters received equal share of hearth and harvest. She rode a small white dragon hatched from the winter egg, the first to take wing in the north. Small folk began crafting woven dolls, daughters clutching dragonets, and whispered that every newborn girl bore within her a spark of wild flame. Meanwhile, in Oldtown, the High Septon's sermons grew frantic. On the day of 3 moons, he declared Rhaenyra an apostate and urged a holy host to march. But the citadel itself had begun to shift. Women studied at night under candlelight, copying treatises on leechcraft and astronomy. Archmaester Vagon, once furious, found his best apprentices were daughters of cobblers and fishermen, and his resistance softened beneath their relentless competence. When word reached the queen that wrinkled men in the conclave bickered over whether to anoint female novices, she simply said, "They may do as they please. The world already has." On the 15th anniversary of her coronation, Rhaenyra stood upon the ramparts of the Red Keep at dawn. Beneath her, the city bustled. Guild mistresses haggled over fish prices. An orphan girl practiced spear drills taught by a one-armed King's Guard knight, and 2 dragons wheeled overhead, their shadows dappling rooftops. The bells tolled not for war but for market opening. Ser Eric, grayer now but still stalwart, approached under a cloak of indigo. He bowed low. "Your Grace," he said, "a ship from Volantis asks entry. They bear scholars who wish to behold the covenant of 12 queens and learn how flames may temper steel." "Send them to the Hall of Hands," Rhaenyra said, smiling faintly. "Let them study our laws, and perhaps our daughters will one day lecture theirs." She turned to the sunrise. The future stretched vast as the narrow sea, lit by the molten gold of first light. Kingdoms would test her decree. Wars might yet bloom like bracken after fire, but the seed had taken root. A living, breathing law forged in dragonfire and mother's blood. Male succession had been cast into the sea, and though tides might tug, the bedrock beneath the realm had shifted forever. Rain still fell, soft and cleansing, but it no longer tasted of ash. Wind blew from the Blackwater and rattled the lanterns along King's Landing's wharves, carrying brine and the faint hiss of distant breakers. The night after the Volantene scholars arrived, Rhaenyra stood alone on the terrace outside Maegor's Holdfast, reading their petitions by dragonglass lamplight. Each parchment praised the covenant of 12 queens in florid Valyrian, yet beneath the courtesy she sensed appraisal. Volantis wished to measure whether her newborn order could outlive the dragonfire that had birthed it. She pressed the scrolls tight against her breast, feeling the damp air wrinkle their seals, and whispered that the realm would answer with deeds, not words. Below, in the shadow of the Gate of the Gods, the city's pulse throbbed. Mule carts creaked toward the muddy way, shellfish sellers cried midnight bargains, and somewhere a minstrel plucked strings to a new ballad about daughters forging crowns of steel. Rhaenyra's gaze strayed past rooftops toward the black blot of the Dragon Pit's ruins. Moss now gnawed its collapsed dome, but within lay the warm incubation chambers her builders had quietly begun. Kills fed by coal and dragonfire, designed to nurture clutches from the surviving broods. Soon, she thought, hatchlings would scramble across those scorched flagstones, and the city that once feared dragons would cradle them as symbols of rebirth. A muffled footstep behind her. Eric Cargill, no longer in armor but in mourning gray, waited with a folded letter. The ink on his fingers betrayed fresh drafting. "Another sermon from Oldtown?" she asked without turning. "Worse, Your Grace, a summons from Highgarden. Lord Lionel Tyrell gathers a harvest court, and word says the High Septon himself rides there, flanked by 100 crystal knights." Eric's voice trembled with old anger. "They mean to denounce your edicts upon Reach soil, where grain and gods share root." Rhaenyra closed her eyes. Memories of Reach fields aflame during the dance flooded back. The stench of burned wheat, the screams of peasants caught between falcons and dragons. "If the faith stirs rebellion," she murmured, "they choose fertile ground. Bread will rise with any warmth." She took the letter, tore its seal, and scanned the ornate script. Lord Lionel couched his invitation in silk, a harvest pageant, a blessing upon new children, a request for the Queen's personal guidance. Yet beneath the flourishes she felt the pull of a pit dug for her feet. "Draft my answer," she told Eric. "We ride for Highgarden on the first fair tide, and summon the handmaidens' assembly at dawn, everyone who can reach the capital by sea or sky." Eric bowed and vanished into Torch's flicker, leaving her with the distant beat of waves and the knowledge that her reign's next test would bloom among roses. Syrax's golden wings unfurled like sunrise over storm clouds as the royal convoy lifted from the Red Keep's yard. Rhaenyra rode alone, armored in supple river-blue leather shot through with threads of silver. Below, her procession stretched south along the Rose Road. Columns of household guards in black and crimson, wagons laden with seed grain for villages still limping from war, and standard-bearers carrying twin banners, the red three-headed dragon and the Queen's womb coiled about a shining pearl. Baela circled overhead upon Tessarion, the jade flame rippling along her dragon's scales as they banked. To the west, a second pair of wings joined, Alyra Stark astride Frostfire, whose hide shimmered blue-white, casting halos in morning light. Rhaenyra watched them converge and felt the realm's future incarnate in their flight. Fire and frost twined around the same covenant. The overland host marched too, for visibility mattered. Lady Sabria Blackwood led 500 bowwomen. Maya Stone of the Eyrie brought hawk-helmed riders adept at cliff warfare, and behind them strode Captain Sarner Arya of Lys with 50 Selsails sworn to defend free inheritance. Each contingent displayed the Queen's womb upon shields or breastplates, a rolling tide of silver on black. Villagers and small folk turned out as drums announced their advance. Children threw petals, mothers curtsied, fathers bent knee, and among them priests of the Seven watched grim-eyed. Some offered the party bread and salt. Others pressed palms to chests in silent plea for prosperity's return. Rhaenyra halted often to speak, learning which mills still lay in ruin, which sickbeds lacked maesterly care, and which daughters had stepped into fields while sons' bones yet lay unsown. She promised seed, tools, and maesters in equal measure, sealing each vow with her sigil pressed into soft beeswax carried by scribes. Behind her, scrolled records of oblations grew thick as any war ledger. 3 days' ride from Highgarden, the convoy entered orchards ripe with autumn. Yet scars lingered where earlier raids had trampled vines. Charred stumps of scorpions jutted at crossroads like broken teeth. Scouts returned bearing word of a band calling itself the Summer Scions, sons of second sons, sworn to restore male patrimony through terror. They struck caravans carrying widows' dowries, branding stolen coin with 7-pointed stars. Baela requested leave to hunt them from Dragonback. Rhaenyra denied her. "The Reach must see justice delivered by the law that binds dragons," she said, "not by dragon flame alone." Instead, she dispatched Maya Stone's hawk riders. They slipped into moon-drowned vineyards, lured the scions with carts piled high in counterfeit dowries, then closed like talons. At dawn, 30 men knelt bound beneath apple trees heavy with dew. Rhaenyra convened a tribunal witnessed by local villagers. She read aloud their crimes, then offered the same choice granted to zealots before, the wall or the sword. 27 chose black, eyes hollow but breathing. 3 spat that no woman's crown could judge them. They died before noon, buried upright at a crossroads with carved plaques. "Here lies the root of old rot, planted, not honored." The signboards spread swiftly as a folk charm. That night, Rhaenyra sat by her campfire and wrote a decree. Crossroads throughout the realm would mark the graves of those who killed to erase women's rights. Let travelers remember. Highgarden's ramparts rose like stony blooms above concentric moats, banners of rose and ivy snapping in sunset's blush. Yet as Rhaenyra's party entered the first gatehouse, she noted extra guards in Septon's capes flanking Tyrell men. Harps played airy courtly tunes, but tension suffused the perfumed air like unseen briar thorns. Lord Lionel Tyrell welcomed her in the tourney yard, kneeling upon a carpet of petals. He was lean, silver streaking his curls, eyes sharp with calculation. Beside him knelt his lady wife Jane, cheeks rouged deep, chin lifted with studied poise. Farther back stood the High Septon, robed in cloth of gold, crystal crown sparkling. He did not kneel. His 7 crystal points glared bright as unsheathed blades. "Our harvest is blessed by your presence, your grace," Lord Lionel proclaimed. "May these walls shelter a peace to warm every hearth." Rhaenyra dismounted. "May those walls echo truth," she returned, voice clear enough that the waiting crowd stilled. She glanced at the High Septon. "I trust the god's mouthpiece will share in that warmth." The old man's lips pinched. The warmth of piety need not be tempered by novelty. The faith endures through tradition. He inclined his head by the smallest degree. "So it shall," she replied. "When tradition aligns with justice." She offered him no further audience. Instead, she clasped Lady Jane's hands and spoke of orchard yields and seed loans. The gesture drew murmurs. Queen and lady conversing as stewards, not as pawns in men's games. That evening, a feast stretched within Highgarden's resplendent feast hall, its carved arches hung with fruit garlands. The 12 queens' representatives sat honored beside Rhaenyra. Nymeria Sand draped in sunset silk, Lady Johanna Lannister flashing sly smiles, the Maester Sabella Caltigar scribbling observations even as music swelled. Lord Lionel proposed to open festivities with blessings from the High Septon. Rhaenyra agreed, under condition that each faith present might also speak, including the red priests who followed her retinue and the keep's own septas. The High Septon frowned, but he mounted the dais. His sermon began with honeyed praise of harvest plenty, then shifted. "The 7 crowned kings and anointed sons," he proclaimed, voice amplified by the airy vaults. "They guided Aegon the Conqueror and his sons after him. When the natural order is overturned, storms answer." He turned toward Rhaenyra. "A kingdom's health rests on firm foundations. Beware crumbling stone hidden by new paint." Silence pooled like dark wine. Rhaenyra lifted her goblet, sipped, then rose. She spoke without raising her voice, yet her words carried. "Stone crumbles when rot eats its core. My father once believed that sons alone could inherit strength. That belief cost us 6 dragons, thousands of lives, and years of fire. If the faith would preserve the realm, let it begin by honoring the mothers who give it life." She set her goblet down. "And I remind His High Holiness, the faith swore fealty to my throne. To break that oath is to sunder the realm's peace." "Are we at peace, High Septon?" Under hundreds of gazes, the old man hesitated. A god's mouthpiece paused before a mortal queen. Finally, he inclined his head, deeper than before. "We are at peace, Your Grace." Only then did music resume. Conversations restarted like thawed rivers. Yet Rhaenyra sensed currents beneath. Some diners smiled in approval. Others whispered with stormy brows. She excused herself early, retiring to chambers provided by Lady Jane. There, on a balcony swathed in jasmine, she found Bela already waiting, hair wind-tangled, jade armor dusted with travel grit. "Tessarion saw smoke on the horizon east," Bela reported. "Small but not hearth smoke. We circled. A lumber mill burned. No sigils left except a star carved into charred beams." Rhaenyra's knuckles whitened on the railing. "The faith's zealots answer their shepherd's call with flame. Did you find survivors?" 3. A mother and her 2 daughters, hidden in a dry well. "See them tended." Rhaenyra's jaw clenched. "Tomorrow we negotiate with words. The day after, perhaps with harsher tools." Negotiations opened in the ivy September, a sylvan cloister whose stained glass panels painted the tiled floor with sunlit blossoms. Rhaenyra faced Lord Lionel, Lady Jane, and the High Septon, flanked by her council. Sabella Caltigar, Lady Johanna, and Nymeria Sand. No swords were permitted, though dragons wheeled overhead, a silent assurance. Lord Lionel proposed a compromise. Reach inheritance would follow eldest child first unless the eldest daughter wed outside her liege's liege lordship, lest estates drift beyond rightful allegiances. Rhaenyra countered. Marriage choices were no leash, and property must travel with the heirs themselves. The High Septon demanded ecclesiastical oversight of all future changes. Sabella retorted that maesters, not septons, compiled legal record, and the conclave had recognized the new laws. Back and forth they parried. By midday heat thickened, windows dripping condensed breath. Lady Johanna leaned and whispered in Rhaenyra's ear, "The Tyrells fear house extinction, offer security of title, not control of wombs." Rhaenyra nodded. She proposed the Charter of Blooming Branches. Any daughter inheriting a reach seat might appoint a domestic council, minimum 3 members, drawn from local cadet branches, ensuring kin retained advisory voice. Not veto, but council. Estates would thus remain culturally tied without shattering the Queen's edict. Lady Jane's brow lifted in surprise. She whispered to Lord Lionel. The tension eased. Yet the High Septon would not yield. He cited the doctrine of the father's seed, an ancient text claiming male issue carried divine order. Nymeria Sand laughed aloud. Divine order? She yanked a dagger from her boot. Guards startled though unsheathed, and sliced her own thumb. Blood beaded. My father's seed produced 8 daughters, each a storm. Which of us is less a divine tool than a whining boy? She smeared blood across the Septon's document. Gasps erupted. Rhaenyra seized the moment. Seal the charter, she commanded, and add a clause. Any militant attack upon holders of the Queen's womb will be deemed treason against the crown and punished as such. She stared at the High Septon until he looked away. By twilight, the accord was signed. Rhaenyra dismissed council and strode alone into the rose gardens, seeking quiet. Perfumed breeze stirred petals that brushed her gauntlets as though plants offered homage. She allowed herself one deep breath. Then a whisper of steel hissed behind. She whirled. A figure cloaked in acolyte gray lunged with a thin dirk. Reflex lifted her forearm. Leather parted but slowed the blade. Pain flared along her skin. She drove her knee into the attacker's gut, wrenched the dagger free, and slammed its pommel against their temple. They crumpled, hood falling. A youth, copper-haired, cheeks tear-streaked. Guards converged. Rhaenyra raised a hand. "Alive!" she ordered. She knelt, ignoring her own blood. "Who sent you?" The boy's lips trembled. "Please, my sisters were hungry. The Harvest Lodge promised coin if I spilled impure blood." His eyes widened. He stared at her wound. "They said you were an abomination against sons." Rhaenyra's heart clenched. She motioned for a maester. "This child will face judgment," she told the guards. "But feed him first. Hunger breeds daggers." Turning, she bound her arm, fury simmering. Back in her chambers, she dictated letters. To Riverland's lords, to Storm Lords, to Dorne. The faith now hires blades among starving children. Send grain, open storehouses, host traveling septas to preach mercy, not hate. She sealed each with blood-stained wax. At dawn, she met the High Septon before the Grand Sept's altar. She laid the blood-tainted dirk at his feet. "Your Harvest Lodge sows daggers," she said. "Every life taken henceforth will be laid at the mother's feet and weighed against your soul." The old man's hand shook on his staff. For the first time, Rhaenyra sensed fear rather than pomp. The covenant rippled outward. In Maidenspool, septas began teaching letters to fisher-girls alongside psalms. In Gulltown, the Moondoor's garrison welcomed its first Lady Knight candidate under white and silver oaths. Yet unrest flickered still. Ravens told of corsairs massing near the stepstones, while in the Dornish marches, smugglers whispered that Oldtown's purists sought foreign allies. Rhaenyra convened her small council within Highgarden Solar for a final strategy session before departing. Map tokens scattered across a silk map of the Narrow Sea. Triarchy galleys, Tyroshi Marquez, and black-on-silver coins marking rumored mercenary paymasters. Sabella warned that if the faith could not break the Queen through dogma, it might do so by bleeding trade. "Cut the arteries of coin," she said, "and hearts of dragons starve." Lady Johanna proposed an answer. A league of harbors abiding by the Queen's womb, pledging reduced duties for ships flying her new sigil, a silver dragon egg upon black sail. Volantis, eager for fresh routes, had offered favorable lend-lease of their famed Blackwood triremes, provided their scholars could study dragon breeding. Nymeria Sand volunteered to sail south and finalize terms. Rhaenyra clasped her arm. Go! Take Frostfire's shadow overhead to show we guarantee what we promise. As plans coalesced, Baela returned from an aerial survey with news. Scorpion emplacements rising along the Honeywine's banks. More than mere zealot camps. Someone funded war material. Rhaenyra decided to depart by dawn, yet she left a token. She gifted the Charter of Blooming Branches to Lord Lionel, sealed and witnessed. Let this document bloom in hall and heart, she said. Betrayal will see it seared upon the conscience of every Reachfolk, and dragons remember treachery. Lord Lionel bowed. His eyes, troubled, reflective, tracked her as she mounted Syrax. Whether he would uphold their pact, only time would reveal. But Rhaenyra believed men capable of tending gardens if shown how root and blossom thrive together. Days later, back within the Red Keep, she convened the first full assembly of 12 queens. They gathered in the refurbished Maiden Vault, its ceiling now painted with swirling constellations of dragons coiling about 7-pointed stars. Long oaken benches encircled a low marble dais. Rhaenyra sat not upon a throne but a simple carved chair, equal in height to those of her council. Maya Stone spoke first, detailing mountain holdfasts still resisting the womb. She proposed training sky messengers, girls who rode small wyverns to deliver decrees across impassable passes. Sabella countered with concerns over wyvern temperament. Johanna offered purse funds to breed gentler strains. Each idea sparked another. They debated tariffs, adoption rights, naval rosters, and library endowments for young maids. Voices clashed but never fell to insult. The chamber rang with vigor unlike any male-dominated council Rhaenyra had known. At session's close, Rhaenyra rose last. We have shaped laws, she said. But law is parchment until lived. Ride, sail, walk the kingdom. Carry what we forge here into smithies, kitchens, and castle yards. Let the realm itself ratify us. She dismissed them with open palms, each parted to blaze their own path. As they filed out, Aegon the Younger entered, thin and solemn. He studied the empty benches, then his mother. They call me Prince of Dragonslayer's death, and I dream of smoke, he whispered. Will the realm accept me, mother, when I ascend with them at my side? Rhaenyra cupped his cheek. You will rule not alone, but alongside hearts as fierce as any dragons, she said. Let their strength be your salve, not your shadow. She pressed a small pouch into his hands, polished river stones engraved with each counselor's sigil. Carry these when fear closes its jaws. They remind that rule is shared burden. Aegon nodded, tears glimmering. I will try. Winter's talons stretched by the 5th year after Highgarden. Whitecaps lashed the western cliffs, and gulls screamed over slate skies. Ravens brought ill tidings. A Triarchy fleet of 60 war dramans had sailed past Bloodstone. Smoke rose from Cape Wrath, watchtowers raised by scorpions. Lord Boros Baratheon's banners rallied, but no dragons yet guarded the Stormlands. Rhaenyra called her war council. Baela urged immediate flight. 2 dragons can rout a fleet, but 3 will end it, she declared, javelin-lean frame taut with anticipation. Alyra volunteered Frostfire. Syrax would bear the queen. Aegon hesitated yet offered Moondancer. Rhaenyra laid a gentle hand on his. Guard King's Landing. Its heart must never again know dragonless dread. They departed at dawn, dragons slicing cloud. Below, Rowan and fell bannermen marched, spears glinting like silver wheat. Reaching Shipbreaker Bay, they saw sails blotting the horizon, black and green Tyroshi stripes, red arches of Lys, the Triarchy's golden merman crest. Catapults bristled along decks. Rhaenyra signaled. Frostfire to first, breath shards of icy sleet that glazed masts. Tessarion followed, jade flame erupting across frost-cracked timbers, shattering them into burning splinters. Syrax roared. Sun turned his scales molten gold and exhaled a torrent of white-hot fire. Ships reeled. Men screamed. Water hissed to steam. But the Triarchy had prepared. Giant arbalests released barbed chains tipped with pyromancer's fire. One caught Tessarion's wing, Baela jerked, screaming. Her dragon thrashed, tail smashing a mast. Rhaenyra banked Syrax beside them, claws severing the chain. She saw Baela's face streaked with soot yet fierce. Frostfire swooped, ice breath extinguishing flame on Tessarian's membrane, sealing rents in crystal frost that numbed pain. Baela shouted thanks. They wheeled back. Yet from the flagship rose a monstrous scorpion, thrice the size of any king's landing remembered. Its bolt, iron-cored and tipped with basilisk venom, launched straight toward Syrax's breast. Rhaenyra swerved. The bolt grazed scale, sending shards spinning. White pain lanced her dragon. He faltered. Before the scorpion could reload, Frostfire plummeted in a spiral, jaws crushing the mechanism to splinters. Sailors leapt into churning sea. In that savage dance of frost and flame, the enemy broke. Ships collided, hulls ablaze. Rhaenyra steadied Syrax, blood oozing from scale fractures, but his wings beat resolute. Together they incinerated the flagship's stern. By midday, broken masts drifted like grave markers, and gulls feasted. On Blackhaven's shore, Rhaenyra addressed survivors, Stormlander and sailor alike. She did not boast. She spoke of burnt daughters whose fathers had died at sea, and of sons now redeemed by surrender. Triarchy captives knelt, agreeing to pay reparations in gold and cedar ships for rebuilding Stepstone's watchtowers. Baela stood by, her arm bound in sling. Word of her valor galloped ahead to King's Landing. Syrax's wounds healed slowly. Maesters brewed poultices of pine resin and powdered sapphire. Rhaenyra herself applied them each dawn, whispering thanks in high Valyrian cadences learned at her father's knee. She slept seldom, haunted by images of that venom-barbed bolt. Had Frostfire been slower, the realm might now mourn a dragon queen felled by distant tyrant's coin. Yet crisis yielded opportunity. The Triarchy's admission of fault strengthened Rhaenyra's cause overseas. Volantis ratified the Harbor League, while Bravos offered to mediate debt relief for Stormland's villages if the Queen's womb were inscribed upon trade codices. The faith's purists found foreign allies dwindling. Still, Oldtown remained a thorn. Reports reached the capital of secret fasts where knights surrendered swords to crystal-fixated monks, awaiting a chosen son promised by prophecy. Rhaenyra feared rebellion coalescing around some male pretender. She tasked Maya Stone with infiltrating disguised as a septa. Weeks passed. Then a raven arrived. The chosen son was none other than Daeron Targaryen, once fostered in Oldtown, protected by high towers. The boy, now man, had refused to contest Rhaenyra, retiring to a quiet life of scholarship. Purists now framed him as reluctant messiah. Rhaenyra sighed. Daeron tugged her heart. A brother lost to war's tide, still gentle at its edge. She penned a letter in her own hand, inviting him to King's Landing to witness the realm's transformation firsthand, promising safe conduct. Maesters cautioned risk. She sent the let. Irregardless, the realm needed living proof that brother and sister could coexist without swords. Midwinter's Eve, snowflakes drifted across King's Landing for the first time in a decade. Hearths crackled. Within the Red Keep's library, Rhaenyra walked aisles stacked with new texts commissioned under the Charter. Treatises on fishery law by Lady Samira, herbal pharmacopoeias by Maester Idarla, a volume of nursery tales where heroes were daughters and dragons shepherds. She paused beside Aegon, now 15, bent over naval charts. He looked up. Mother, may I sail with Nymeria's fleet come spring? I wish to learn the ocean's language before I rule harbors. She studied him, eyes still haunted, yet determination steadier. Yes, she said, but you travel with council's blessing and a quartet of handmaidens. Rule's language speaks through many tongues. Learn them too. He nodded, relief softening. I will earn Frostfire's trust one day, he whispered almost to himself. She smiled, ruffling his dark hair. Thunder rumbled though no storm brewed. Distant cannons? She stiffened, then realized it was Dragonwing. She rushed to the balcony. Above the snow-dusted rooftops glided a sleek dragon the color of sea glass. Morning, steed of Daeron Targaryen. Behind came another, Tessarian, now healed, escorting. At the gates, a silver-haired rider dismounted. Daeron approached with arms open, not for embrace but surrender. Rhaenyra met him in the courtyard. The siblings stood amid swirling snow, memories thick as flakes. He bowed deep. "Sister, queen, let the past burn to ash," he said. "I bear only words of truce." She stepped forward and clasped his forearms. "Brother, welcome home." Cheers rose from ramparts, some hesitant, others jubilant. The realm watched two heirs of fire choose peace over prophecy. That night, they supped quietly, speaking of books and children saved from siege, not of thrones. Daeron agreed to sit upon the 12 Queens' advisory ring, offering insight into healing the faith's wounds. The High Septon, upon hearing, sequestered himself in prayer. Rumor said his influence waned as younger septas, heartened by Maester Idarla's teachings, questioned dogma. Spring's first crocuses speared through frost. Rhaenyra convened a festival on the Dragon Pit Plateau. Once desolation, now leveled, paved, and crowned with a marble amphitheater called the Heartfire Arena. Here, dragon keepers displayed 3 hatchlings hatched that winter. A smoky gray named Memory, a copper-flecked maiden named Glory, and a rare albino called Dawn. Children all but engulfed them with rapt ooze, though keepers held gentle reins. Rhaenyra addressed the throng. "Behold not monsters, but mirrors. Dragons do not ask whether law names them heirs. They simply breathe who they are. Let us breathe likewise." She lowered her arms, and behind her the arena's braziers ignited in shapes of twisting dragons intertwining, a symbol of balanced inheritance. Amid cheers, she felt a pulse in her belly, faint but certain. A new life quickened within her. She had taken as consort Ser Harwin's cousin Ser Loras Strong, a gentle man who preferred books to justs. The babe's arrival would prove her decree's final seal, for whether son or daughter, the child would stand equal beside Aegon. She placed a hand upon the slight curve, smiled, and whispered to the unborn, "Your cradle is a realm reborn." Years turned. The Reach blossomed under the charter. Cider exports doubled, and with them, revenues funding libraries where girls and boys studied side by side. In the north, Elira's census saw land subdivided into equitable parcels, having border disputes. In Dorne, Nymeria brokered the Sunfire Accords, Dorne's formal entry into the 7 kingdoms under a pledge that its princes or princesses would owe fealty directly to the crown, but keep their customs, including equal inheritance already centuries old. Oldtown at last capitulated. When the elderly High Septon died, his successor was chosen not from the faith's rigid hierarchy, but from humble septons tested by service to widows of the dance. The new septon, a russet-skinned man named Lomar, traveled to King's Landing and bent knee, pledging the faith's guardianship of the Covenant's spirit rather than its downfall. Rhaenyra accepted with steady grace yet insisted upon one rite. Lomar anointed Aegon and her newborn daughter Visenya together before the starry September's high altar, blessing brother and sister equally. The ceremony's image traveled on woodcuts across the kingdoms. 2 royal infants held aloft beneath crystal light, signifying dawn of shared rule. On the 20th anniversary of Rhaenyra's reign, an elderly woman named Barba Beesbury, once a scribe in her family's modest counting house, was sworn as the First Lady Chancellor of the realm's mint. Girls across the land whispered her name like a talisman. A poet from Lannisport composed an epic, The Crown of Embers, portraying the dance as a cocoon that birthed a flame-winged butterfly named Justice. The tale spread to bravos and Myr. Mummers enacted it with silk wings lit by lanterns. Even Tyrosh, once ally to zealots, invited the crown's emissaries to discuss mutual piracy patrols. And when night deepened, Rhaenyra sometimes climbed the rebuilt steam silk tower, scorch marks cleaned away, stones whitewashed. From its summit she beheld a city humming with bakeries, cradles, forges, and libraries. She would rest a hand upon the parapet and recall the first night she addressed lords beneath rain-soaked rafters, voice shaking yet resolute. She remembered smoke and mangled throne and ghosts of brothers, and she would whisper into the wind, "We dance still, but now to cradle life." Syrax would perch nearby, vast wings enfolding stars. With a crooning rumble, he'd incline his head toward the queen who had flown against storm and scorn to carve a new path through sky and law alike. She would press her brow to his scaled jaw, and in that silent communion know that the realm's heartbeat echoed her own. Steady, fiery, and forever changed, mist gathered along the whispering waves that lapped the keys of Driftmark, silvering rigging and staining dawn with salt. Rhaenyra Targaryen stood on the forecastle of the queen's memory, breath visible in the chill, cloak snapped by wind that smelt of kelp and far-off fires. Behind her the ship's crew, half Valyrian brine men, half Stormland fisherwomen, loose sail for King's Landing, carrying casks of sweet wine, cedar spars for mast rebuilds, and 3 crates of Braavosi-printed books describing the covenant of 12 queens in 7 different tongues. She touched the railing with scarred fingers, feeling tar and grain, and murmured to her unborn vision of Westeros. Steel and salt, ink and fire, all must braid together or the rope frays. Syrax spiraled overhead, wings gold as the rising sun, shadow skimming the deck. Sailors bowed instinctively. Even after decades of peace, the dragon's presence still sang of awesome, ancient power. Yet where fear once reigned, reverence now blossomed. Children in driftwood carts chased Syrax's silhouette, shouting the names of new hatchlings hatched in the dragon pit. Memory, glory, dawn. These names threaded ballads from Dorne to the neck, promising that Dragonfire now guarded law instead of lording above it. The queen's thoughts turned to Oldtown. Ravens reported a council of intransigent lords convening inside the high tower, preaching return to Father First succession beneath banners stitched with silver stars and gilded swords. What troubled her was not the bluster. Powerful men had grumbled since the day she thrust Blackfyre into the Iron Throne step, but the rumor that their secret emissaries had sailed across the Sunset Sea, courting an alliance of Bravos, Lys, and even Braeger's drifting Cellsail armada in Ibn. Coin minted in a dozen foreign vaults might arm thousands. Coin could also buy whisperers willing to poison wells of loyalty sown between queen and commons. Rhaenyra tapped the rail again, thinking of woodworms. Tiny mouths that hollow a hull from within. A soft tread approached. Alyra Stark, swathed in wolf-gray furs even beneath southern sun, leaned on the railing beside her queen. "The tide pulls north," she said, pale eyes catching morning fire. "Letters from Winterfell say raiders wearing 7-pointed stars strike lonely farms near Last River. They torch barns, claiming grain gathered under matriarchal rule is cursed. My cousin slew 5, but others vanished into the taiga." Rhaenyra hissed through her teeth. "The faith militant died with Maegor's cruelty. Yet zeal is a weed. We prune it, then ash seeds blow on every wind." She paused, then glanced at Alyra's swelling belly. "Your 3rd child quickens? Like a dire wolf chasing grouse," Alyra said, hand pressed to fur-lined bodice. "Jacaerys glows when he thinks of her. He is certain the babe is a daughter." A smile ghosted her lips. "He will love any cub, but I treasure how proud fathers can be of a daughter since you changed the realm." Rhaenyra considered that, proud fathers of daughters, a notion once as foreign as ice in Dorne. "Teach her how to swing a sword and to still her heart when ravens bring dread," she said. "The storms ahead will test every root we've grown." The journey home ended beneath sullen clouds smeared low over Blackwater Bay. From afar the Red Keep's banners fluttered. 3-headed dragon intertwined with the womb, dyed anew and trimmed in frost blue to honor the North's fealty. Cannons on the King's Gate fired blossom shells of compressed salt and rose petals, a confection devised by alchemist guild matrons who declared that mundane flame must bow to aesthetic celebration. The petals drifted onto cobbled streets where small folk chanted, "Nyra the just, Nyra the true." But amid the jubilee, Rhaenyra saw sets of narrowed eyes, foreign merchants in too-fine cloaks, and gaunt men with prayer beads of polished bone. Within the Red Keep she summoned Grand Maester Idarla, whose quick quill and quicker wit had managed grain subsidies through 2 harsh winters. The maester's face creased with worry as she laid scrolls before the queen. "Intercepted cipher, your grace. Sourced by Maya Stone's hawk riders from a courier slain north of Bitterbridge." The The cipher names a convocation of the Solar Lamb in Oldtown on Maiden's Eve. It lists lords sworn to deliver tribute armies once a messiah of male right is unveiled. Messiah, Rhaenyra repeated softly. They lay prophecy like chainmail over fear. She scanned the names. House Florent, House Oakhart, even a cadet branch of House Tarly, whose lord once swore to protect widows under her charter. Betrayal rooted deep. Alira's gloved finger traced another line. And here, Bravos pledges 10 warcogs under condition of exclusive stepstones toll rights. That will sever half our coastal grain trade, Idarla warned. If the toll guard yields to foreign adjudicators, famine could shadow the stormlands again. Rhaenyra closed her eyes, inhaling lantern oil and parchment. When she opened them, her lilac pupils glinted like tempered steel. Then we shall meet prophecy with presence. She turned to the guard captain. Summon the handmaidens by raven, feathered and firelit. We march south by land, sails shadowed by dragons overhead. No siege, only witness. The realm will choose after seeing the truth arrayed beside the lie. 2 weeks later, a caravan of banners wove along the Rose Road. The silvered seedling of the Citadel Library, the rose and bloom of Tyrell loyalists, the dire wolf circled by frost-blue fire of House Stark Targaryen. At its heart rode the Queen, flanked by Baela on Tessarion above and Daeron beside on Morning, each dragon harnessed with banners that fluttered like living standards. Seps along the road closed their doors at the party's approach, bells tolling half-mournful notes. But peasant crowds gathered anyway, mothers hoisting infants to glimpse the Queen who had given them dowry rights and daughters' inheritance. Some pressed tokens into the caravan's hands, simple carved wooden eggs, coins etched with amateur likenesses of Rhaenyra's profile, small scrolls petitioning for midwife schools. Rhaenyra collected each, storing them in a chest inside her wagon. Proof, she mused, that a realm's soul can evolve even while its lords claw at the bones of the old order. But further south, the landscape soured. Orchards along the Mander lay torched, fruit charred black and buzzing with flies. One hamlet's well had been poisoned with quicklime. Men in mask helmets bearing stars had left a smear of chalk scrawled upon a barn. Water drunk from a woman's hand is death. Rhaenyra stepped among the bodies with lips pressed thin. She ordered maesters to cleanse the well, bury the dead, and erect a shrine inscribed, "Here the old lies poison the living. Let the living plant new roots." She paid for seedlings of apple and peach to be delivered this very spring. On the 5th night, their outriders clashed with a band of zealots wielding morning stars carved with scripture. The skirmish ended quickly under volley of blackwood arrows, but one prisoner spat defiance. "You war against the father's seed," he snarled at Rhaenyra when hauled before her. "Flame shall cleanse your womb." His words carried the fervor of one promised absolution by some hidden shepherd. She studied him, young, half-starved, eyes yellowed. She realized with sudden clarity that zeal was not solely greed of lords. It was also desperation of those offered meaning amid ruin. To him, she said, "The father shares hearth with the mother, and both weep at their child's suffering. Your shepherd peddles comfort in exchange for your humanity. Lay down hate, and you'll share my bread instead of my gallows." She ordered him unchained, given soup, then put to work repairing a broken bridge under watchful eyes. Some of her own guards protested. She silenced them. "One salvaged life is a stone pulled from the avalanche," she said. As the Queen's host approached Oldtown, they saw plumes of torchlight flickering atop the high tower like a crown of embers. The harbor below crawled with foreign ships, galleys bearing Lycine silk banners, cog-masted slavers from the Basilisk Isles now disguised as free traders, sleek Bravosi triremes ablaze with lanterns shaped as hand-gripping keys. Atop one tall mast flew a banner depicting a lamb in sunburst, symbol of the whispered convocation. Rhaenyra wheeled seracs to circle the fleet once, amber flame licking edges of night sky. Drummers aboard the foreign vessels fell silent as her dragon's roar rolled over water. Yet the ships did not scatter. Instead, sailors knelt upon decks, palms raised, as though greeting a god they feared but must confront. They wait for their staging play, Baela said through speaking horn from Tessarian's back. A revelation choreographed by Coin. The queen chose to land not at the docks but on the wide steps of the starry September's outer court, forcing the convocation's watchers to adjust their theater. Hundreds of pilgrims had camped there, ringed by braziers and woven rush mats. When Syrax's talons clanged upon marble, pilgrims shrank back. Rhaenyra dismounted in silence, helm under arm, cloak snapping. She waited while her council and handmaidens arrayed behind her, and only then did she approach the sept's massive doors. Inside, fragrant smoke of myrrh and pressed banners of the Seven masked an audience assembled like tears in a grand amphitheater. Lords Florent, Oakhart, Tarly huddled near aisle pews. Behind them foreign envoys perched like exotic birds. At the dais stood High Septon Lomar, newly elected yet already flanked by elder clergy whose eyes glittered with old ambition. And at his right hand rested a platform draped in gold brocade, tall enough to be seen by all but curtained from view. The hush thickened until one could hear the flutter of prayer scrolls. The High Septon stepped forward. "Your Grace," he greeted, voice measured. "Welcome to Oldtown, heart of faith and seat of reason." His polite nod disguised tension. "We gather in hope that from discourse sprouts concord." Rhaenyra inclined her head slightly, though she noted that none offered appropriate obeisance to their liege. Instead of rebuking, she said, "Then let concord dawn. Reveal your purpose, High Septon." A queen travels with scarce time for riddles. Murmurs rippled. At a sign, acolytes drew back the brocade curtain. Upon the platform stood a young man, perhaps 21, hair silver gold, violet eyes downcast. He wore a simple robe of white embroidered with silver suns. Spotlights of candelabra lit his pale face. The crowd collectively inhaled. "My lords, my ladies," the High Septon declared, "behold Daeron Targaryen reborn, now named Aegon the Anointed, rightful king by the Father's will. He rejects the ensnarements of worldly vanity, yet accepts the burden the realm has asked of him." He gestured grandly. "He will restore ancient order, placing sons over uncertain whim, aligning crown with faith as in the Conqueror's day." Whispers crescendoed. "Aegon the Anointed. Is it truly Daeron?" Some lords squinted. A few women in the gallery wept, clutching star tokens at their breasts. Rhaenyra's expression remained unmoved, but Baela clenched fist upon sword hilt. Only months past Daeron had sworn counsel to his sister. Now his face looked eerily drained, eyes fever-bright. She recognized the haze of forced fasting, maybe worse. She stepped forward until voice carried across every arch-brother. She said softly, "Look upon me. Do you claim me, foe?" Daeron lifted his gaze. Recognition flickered. Tears sprang. He opened his mouth, but the High Septon raised a hand. "The Anointed speaks through the faith," he cut, "lest confusion splinter our communion." Two crystal knights stepped up behind Daeron, gauntlets resting on gilt grips. A hush became anguish. Rhaenyra felt a throb behind her ribs, the twin pains of personal betrayal and impending civil blood. She drew breath that tasted of incense and dust. "You call counsel?" she addressed the convocation. "Yet you chain the very tongue you claim as your oracle. That is not counsel. That is hostage-taking." She extended a hand toward Daeron. "Brother, speak freely. By the shared blood of the dragon and the mother's tears." Daeron's lips trembled. Words cascaded. "I do not seek the throne. I sought only sanctuary for scholarship." They vowed no harm, only pilgrimage. A crystal knight tightened grip. Daeron winced but pressed on. "My sister rules justly. I witness it. I fear war being sown in my name." Gasped. Lords shifted. The High Septon's face whitened. He gestured. Knights clanged spears. "Blasphemy," he rasped. "The Anointed is under spiritual trial." Rhaenyra's voice sliced through like a dragon's shriek. "Trial implies choice. Chains annul it." She stepped onto the dais. Syrax's roar thundered outside, vibrating marble underfoot. Candle flames bowed. Knights advanced. Baela sprang to block one, but Rhaenyra lifted a palm, hold. She addressed the assembly again. Is there a man or woman here who doubts the realm's prosperity these past 20 years? Who doubts that daughters have tilled fields, chartered ships, minted coin, birthed sons and daughters alike while dragons shielded you from Triarchy tyranny? She pivoted slowly, meeting eyes. If any believe male first law would have spared your farms the dance's ashes, step forth and speak. Silence, broken only by a babe's distant whimper. Even among the lords, none moved. Rhaenyra felt a swell of moral wind. She pointed to Darren's chains. Release him. Crystal Knights looked to High Septon, who shook with fury. But Lords Florent and D. Oakhart exchanged panicked glances. This was not the triumphant coronation they'd bankrolled. Lord Oakhart barked to his retainer, who scrambled to unlock chains. Metal clanged free. Daeron exhaled raggedly. He stepped down toward Rhaenyra. She embraced him before all. "Brother," she whispered, "forgive their snares." He nodded, tears wetting her pauldrons. The High Septon gathered robes around him. "Usurper," he shrieked. "You flaunt heresy." Rhaenyra turned, calm as still water. "Faith stands to lift souls, not to weaponize them. Oldtown shall remain home of gods. But let none forget the crown's oath to defend flock and shepherd alike. Should shepherd mislead flock into slaughter, the crown intervenes." She signaled Nymeria, who strode forward with parchment and quill. "I propose the pact of the mother's balance. The faith renounces armed agitation and pledges sermons of concord. The crown funds rebuilding of septs in war-scarred hamlets and ensures Dragonfire defends holy sites. In return, the faith may appoint witnesses of conscience to attend each small council session. Voices, not vetoes." She raised her hand. "Choose peace, or choose ruin beneath dragons' wings." Murmur dominated. Many septons consulted each other. Lords weighed prospects of trade with the stable realm against bloody gamble. Minutes stretched. Then Lady Jane Tyrell, a surprise ally who had worn Rhaenyra's charter like a clasped rose, stood. "Highgarden accepts the pact," she announced, curtsying. Her voice carried because all listened for Tyrell's purse. Lord Florent wavered, then bowed stiffly. "House Florent concedes." One by one, lords capitulated. Finally, the High Septon, cornered by shrinking support, sagged. "The Seven Guide. We accept." "The mother's balance," he whispered. A collective exhale rose. War averted by blade-sharp diplomacy. Rhaenyra nodded once. "So be it." She kneeled by Daeron, speaking so all heard. "Brother, will you serve as first witness of conscience, bridging crown and faith?" He stared at her, awe mingling with gratitude. "Yes, by my life and learning." Cheers erupted, from loyalists, from merchants craving reopened ports, from women whose daughters' futures glittered again unshadowed by war. Only the High Septon remained rigid, but he had no swords left. His prophecy crumbled by truth spoken from its own pawn. The days that followed became known as the Week of Cleansing Bells. Rhaenyra ordered city wells inspected, grain stores audited, and burned timbers replaced with stone where zealots might ignite fear anew. She funded the process by levying a one-season tariff on all Braavosi cogs anchored at Oldtown. Paradoxically, the bankers accepted. Stability was a safer investment than pockets of revolt. Daeron, now freed of manipulated sainthood, toured small septs with Sabella and Maester Idarla, preaching scholarship and compassion. Pilgrim numbers swelled, but violence dwindled. The faith militants' dream died beneath weight of communal relief. Meanwhile, lords discovered that daughters trained under the charter of Blooming Branches managed estates with surprising acuity. Harvest yields in Oakhart fields rose 12% after Lady Alara Oakhart implemented crop rotation learned from Dornish treatises. Yet Rhaenyra understood victory demanded memory. She decreed an archive be founded within the Starry September, the chronicler of grief and grace, recording each atrocity committed in the name of male supremacy, but also each act of reconciliation. "Let future generations weigh both scales and judge themselves," she said at its dedication. Snow returned faintly, dusting King's Landing in pale hush. In the Red Keep's nursery, Rhaenyra's daughter Visenya toddled among carved dragon figurines escorted by Kingsguard knights who once would have considered such duty beneath them. Aegon, now 19, sat cross-legged nearby, reading a treatise on free city maritime law, pausing to mimic dragon roars for his sister's delight. Rhaenyra watched unseen from archway, heart swelling. The realm's future glimmered not just in these royal children but in countless common households where girls studied, worked guild forges, and debated philosophy at tables once reserved for sons. She left them and climbed to Maegor's holdfast roof, where Syrax waited. From here the city stretched, a tapestry of slate roofs and newly green parks built atop filled-in ash pits. She closed eyes, listening to faint hum of life. Footsteps sounded. Baela joined, hair streaked with ash gold. "Scouts report Braavosi warcogs returning home," she said. "Their captain claims the Stepstone's toll rights were not worth an empire united against them." She grinned. "We stand secure." Rhaenyra nodded. "Holdfast built on hearts, not spears." She looked west, where the horizon blazed pink. "But we must nurture hearts. One decade of justice can be undone by one winter of hunger. We keep feeding, teaching." Baela placed hand on her queen's shoulder. "Your reign has outlived dragons of old. It will outlive winter storms." Rhaenyra smiled faintly. "No reign is forever, but the law can be." She gestured to the city. "When I am ash, eldest child will take up crown, whether son or daughter, dragon rider or ravenkeeper. The realm shall not ask what lies between their legs, but what lies within their soul." Syrax crooned. Wind whipped black and crimson banners overhead. Rhaenyra breathed deep, scenting hearth smoke and distant sea. She thought of her father's regret, of Daemon's reckless grin, of sons lost in the dance. Pain lingered, yet it now fueled purpose rather than despair. She touched her scarred arm, memory of Zealot's dirk, and felt only resolve. Below, bells chimed 9th hour. Across alleys, apprentices closed shutters. Scholars lit reading lamps. Bakers prepared dough for morning loaves named Queen's Blessing, shaped like tiny eggs. Somewhere, a mother tucked a little boy into bed and told him the story of a queen who changed the world so his sister could be his equal. Somewhere, a septon revised an old sermon, replacing sons with children. Somewhere, a dragon hatchling cracked shell under starlight, shrieking first breath into a sky where law and legend now danced together. Rhaenyra stepped onto Syrax's neck. The dragon launched, wings ripping wind. They soared above streets where torchlight mirrored stars, then higher, until the city became mosaic and the river a ribbon of silver. She felt life pulse beneath, thousands of hearts beating in concert, male and female, old and young. Her task was not to rule them forever, but to keep that rhythm steady, to ensure no single drum drowned the rest. As moon crowned the night, Rhaenyra turned Syrax toward Dragonstone. New eggs awaited her council on care, and Daeron had requested copyist monks to illuminate the charter in gold leaf. Work never ended. Yet tonight, riding the ancient wind, she allowed herself a single moment of fierce, unburdened joy. She laughed, a clear, bright sound swallowed by sky, for in that instant she knew the dance was done, not by victory of one song over another, but by weaving all voices into harmony. The dragon roared back, echoing her triumph across stars and Westeros. Sleeping, dreamed of daughters crowned and sons cheering them on, of dragons guarding nurseries, of swords beaten into plowshares and quills forged into laws that neither storm nor time could erase. Sea mist drifted into the red keep's highest corridors, borne on a strange westerly that tasted of brine and snow. Rhaenyra awoke before dawn, as she often did now, and paced barefoot across the chilly tiles of the Queen's solar, the silken hem of her nightgown whispering with each measured step. Moonglass panes showed a faint ripple of aurora flickering far off above the sunset sea. An omen, the Pentoshi stargazers claimed, that the world's long axis had begun tilting to a gentler season. She touched the cool crystal with a scarred palm and felt only the thrum of her own aging heart, steady as Syrax's wing beats in calmer skies. Behind her, the chamber's brazier glowed low. Aegon, tall and gaunt elegant now, lounged beside it, charts strewn across a reading table. Sleepless like his mother, he traced shipping routes from Duskendale to the Stepstones with a swallow quill, murmuring calculations learned from Triarchy harbormasters and Braavosi factors. In the dimness, his violet irises looked black, an open sky without stars. Rhaenyra paused to watch him. 10,000 hours of study, 20 of council debate, a score of voyages along smuggler corridors and salt mines. He bore them like rings of an oak, not as shackles. She wondered whether her own younger self might have envied or pitied him, being groomed in peace yet still carrying the weight of dragons on his back. A gentle rap, the only sound allowed between midnight and sunbreak, stirred the air. It was Visenya, their silver-haired shadow, slipping through the door with a bundle of half-finished crossbow parts cradled in oil-clothed arms. She bowed quickly. "Forgive the hour," she murmured, voice still husky from adolescence. "My gear-ratcheting design hums too loud for sleep." She laid cogs and string across the edge of Aegon's maps, produced a tiny brass barrel, and blew into it. The faint whistle matched a canary's call. 200 strides range, silent until coral strikes. For city watchwomen on night patrol. Aegon smiled, making a note in Valyrian shorthand. Rhaenyra kissed her daughter's brow and caught the scent of forge smoke woven into lavender soap. "The city will rest easier," she said. "Your mind burns brighter than any forge." She thought of how seldom a princess had been encouraged to tinker in the past. The memory of Alicent's needlepoint courts felt as distant as moons before suns. A bell chimed thrice beyond the curtains, announcing the Blue Guard's relief. Dawn would come soon. The day's tasks would call. Rhaenyra stroked a white streak coiled through her hair, listening to her children's quiet brainstorming as she prepared herself for the largest assembly yet of the Great Harbor League. The covenants she had coaxed into bloom now spanned 3 continents and threatened old empires. Tonight she would host envoys from Lung and Volantis in the refurbished Maiden Vault. Once a prison for queens, now a forum of queens and daughters and sages. And she would announce an audacity. The minting of a new royal standard coin. Not the dragon but the phoenix, a double-headed firebird whose twin necks merged into a single blazing heart. This motto in Uncial Valyrian: Ilza hen Azantes, Ilza hen Rhaenyra, forged of men, forged of women. She feared the phoenix would spark economic revolt from the Westerlands, where mines lay in hands of lords nostalgic for male inheritance. But resistance had dulled. Even Casterly Rock's ledgers showed profit since Lady Johanna's daughters assumed the mantle of master coiners. Gold was pragmatic. It bowed to prosperity. Still, uneasy rumors hovered like midges. Distant islands whispered of slaver princes financing corsairs to test the northern sea lanes. The cult of the father's seed still met by moonlight within certain dells of the Kingswood, teaching boys that courage was a spear to be aimed at women who forgot submission. Commerce thrived, yet poverty clung like ironweed where drought struck the Marcher ridges. Rhaenyra carried each ember of discord in her mind, feeding it air enough to flare visible, lest unseen sparks grow into wildfire. Her reign had taught her that victory in law meant constant labor in hearts. The morning drums rolled across the upper bailey. Rhaenyra embraced Aegon and Visenya, then descended spiral stairs where Harwin Strong's cousin Loras waited in courtly black, father of her youngest son Balon, a mischievous 4-year-old who often escaped lessons to ride sheep in the palace mews. Loras pressed her fingers, asked after her rest, then accompanied her to the Court of Steps, where petitioners already formed a living tapestry. The Q wound beneath banners died in frost and flame. Rhaenyra glimpsed a Lysene woman holding a license request for a Mother Guild of Sailors, a Braavosi boy reciting new laws in sign script for the deaf, a Reach farmer presenting a sapling bred for heat-whipped fields. She felt the universe expanding through these tiny orbits of hope. She spent 4 hours signing wax and listening to trembling voices. To a Dornish beekeeper, she granted timber rights to plant wildflower thickets along the restabilized grasslands. To an aging Ironborn raider, once enemy, she pardoned past smuggling in exchange for teaching shipwright apprentices his shallow keel secrets. When a Northern Septon knelt to beg funding for a Frostorphan refuge, she handed him a scroll authorizing a portion of royal trade tithes. but insisted he seat 3 women on the refuge's governing board. He wept into his vestments and promised solemn compliance. Such small barters tethered the crown to lives beyond garrison and grain. In mid-afternoon, the storm clouds her stargazers predicted rolled in from the west, thunderheads bruising the horizon. Rhaenyra dismissed court and climbed to the parapet where her grandsons, Lyrian and Cregan, twin sons of Illyra and Jacaerys, trained with spears under Lady Sabria Blackwood's eye. The boys' laughter danced on scouring wind as they practiced a double feint they called the twin fong. Sabria saluted Rhaenyra, then nodded approval at the lad's form. Rhaenyra felt a pang of pride and melancholy. Dragons might no longer duel over burnt fields, but steel still hummed. Children still sought valor in the ring of ash and iron. She hoped they would test valor more often in Senate halls than blood-mud pits. A runner arrived from the rookery, soaked. "Raven from Queensport, your grace," he gasped, handing her a tube. Inside, parchment bore the seal of the witnesses of conscience. Darren's star and scroll. The message brief. Bravos threatens blockade if toll privileges are not doubled. Demander. Sea Lord's nephews, incited by ex-Florent bankers. Suggest dispatch Glory and Dawn on Goodwill flight. Show grace, not threat. Please advise. Rhaenyra exhaled. The politics of harbor tithes again. She scribbled an answer in dashing Valyrian. Send envoy of widowed mothers. Show them the faces of those whose sons died protecting their summer silk. Offer charter of half toll in exchange for fleet escort against slavers. Phoenix coin accepted at par. Dragons to remain sheathed unless pirates pierce treaty. She sealed it and sent the runner. Rain began, soft needles. Rhaenyra allowed drops to cool her face, scent of petrichor weaving with distant chimney smoke. She descended to the Hall of Memories, the old throne room she refused to rebuild. The iron throne, still cracked from the dance, remained shrouded behind velvet. Instead, she convened state in a semicircular amphitheater lined with seats equal in height. There, the 12 queens or their delegates awaited. Nymeria Sand rose first, reporting from Sunspear, waterworks funded by Crown now irrigated once-parched valleys. But a merchant triad from Yunkai spread rumor that the Crown intended to outlaw male inheritance across Esso's trade outposts, threatening boycott. Nymeria's answer, she had hosted the triad's wives, showed them Dorne's salt pearls mined by female divers earning equal share, and suggested they ask how many coins reached them under husband's oversight. The wives stormed the next merchant council. Boycott dissolved. The chamber chuckled. Lady Johanna Lannister reported record bullion exports but warned of a creeping narrative among Lannisport's dockside drink halls, that the Crown would soon conscript boys into a dragon guard to marry them off as token consorts. Rhaenyra rubbed her temple. Rumor was a hydra. Cut one head, 2 grew. She tasked Visenya's Crossbow Guild to fund traveling theatricals satirizing the myth, featuring comically pampered dragon husbands alongside hard-working wives. Laughter changed hearts better than edict. Grand Maester Idarla spoke of plague flickers along the arbor. Coughing sickness, mild but sticky. She advised quarantine of 2 trading cogs. Rhaenyra approved, also dispatching her own royal apothecaries with herbal tonics recently perfected using Dornish sandroot. Community-first policy kept fear from mutating into mob violence. Sabella Caltigar announced astronomical findings. The aurora cycles predicted harsher winters every 9 years. She applied for funds to build beacon granaries in northern passes. Rhaenyra granted thrice requested some, instructing that widowed veterans oversee each granary's ledger for transparency. When business ended, the storm raged full. Distant thunder seemed echoes of ancient battles. Yet inside the Hall of Memories, only quills scratched and parchment rustled. Night blackened windows, torches flamed. Supper arrived, simple fare of barley stew, olives, and smoked eel. Rhaenyra ate little, mind turning over one last decision. The Phoenix coins unveiling. She sent word to the Guild of Lensmakers to craft magnifying tokens for small folk. Each coin's micro-engraving would depict a woman farmer shaking hands with a smith's son, union of labor. She also composed a decree. Any Phoenix coin offered at a sept for alms would require the sept to match its value from tithes and spend half on girls' schooling. The faith could not refuse. The terms adhered to the pact of the mother's balance. Syrax roared once at midnight, restless in the draft. Rhaenyra donned a dark cloak and climbed to the rookery tower where the dragon perched, rain drumming its scale plates. She laid a hand upon his warm snout. Lightning warped the clouds, illuminating the span of the city's new aqueduct bridging Ward of Looms and the riverbank slums. The aqueduct had been dreamt by a fisherwoman whose brother died during the Triarchy attack. She'd studied engineering scrolls and petitioned the crown for stone. Now clean water coursed above streets where plague once flourished. Rhaenyra whispered, "Do you remember the smell of ash rain?" Syrax huffed steam. "I do," she said, "and I will salt the earth before we return to that diet." She leaned into the dragon's keel, heat seeping through cloak, and closed her eyes. Bela's voice floated upstairs. "Mother!" She entered, cheeks flushed from sparring. "A raven. From Lord Cregan Snow, commander at the Shadow Tower. Wildlings talk of a prophet beyond the Frostfangs preaching that men must reclaim thrones lost to dragon queens lest darkness fall. They flock to him, could be spark of a new king beyond the wall." Rhaenyra exhaled. "The wall stands," she answered. "But prophecy knows no stones. We'll send an envoy, Ser Jarro Tallheart, with frostfire overhead. Perhaps remind them dragonfire warms as well as burns." She dismissed Bela to rest. Hours later, she still stood under storm. Thunder subsided, leaving only hiss of rain. She felt the tug of mortality. Wrinkles around knuckles, slower pulse, nights of bone ache. She thought of Visenya's crossbow, of Aegon's phoenix charts, of grandsons sparring and peasants lettered. She thought of dragons yet unborn, and she realized at last. One day her voice would fade to parchment dust, but the symphony would continue, each instrument tuned by the covenant she'd forged. Some might go sharp, others flat, yet the theme would endure. When dawn's first ember glowed, she descended to the nursery. Balon slept sprawled atop a sheepskin, toy dragon clutched in chubby fist, snoring like tiny forge bellows. She smoothed his hair, dark with a ginger streak from Loras's blood, and whispered, "Every cradle a crown." Then she sat near the hearth and drafted her final bequest. Upon her 55th name day, 2 years hen. CE, she would convene the crown moot of shared flame, abdicating partial regency to a council chaired jointly by Aegon and Visenya, retaining advisory veto only upon unanimous petition of the 12 queens. Power would diffuse like torchlight passed hand to hand, leaving no single wick to burn alone. She sealed the bequest and placed it in the phoenix coffer. Outside, raindrops thinned. A single shaft of rose-gold sunlight pierced the clouds, striking the spire of the rebuilt Dragon Pit dome until it flared like a diamond. Bells began to toll, richer for fresh bronze smithing. The city stirred, the world turned, and somewhere distant, across mountains or oceans, an enemy doubtless plotted. Yet Rhaenyra Targaryen felt unafraid, for dragons soared above libraries, and daughters dreamed aloud, and the ashes of the dance had seeded forests where fire had once devoured hope. Syrax trumpeted to the brightening east. Rhaenyra stood, shoulders straight despite ache, and murmured, "Onward, my old friend. We have scrolls to sign, coins to mint, and futures to midwife." She strode into the growing light, bag of phoenix dyes tucked beneath her arm, heart drumming a rhythm older than thrones. Older, perhaps, than dragons. Yet now set to a new refrain. One realm, one heart, many voices, rising in unison. Wind off the narrow sea cut sharper than any smith-forged blade, but Rhaenyra rode its crest as though born of brine and air. Syrax's wings churned clouds into ragged banners while dawn ignited a thaw-pale horizon. Below, the fields north of Maidenpool lay quilted with frost and prismatic puddles, evidence of the sudden cold snapmaesters now named the Quick Winter, first harbinger of Sibella Caltagar's 9-year cycle. Small folk gathered at crossroads hearths, eyes lifted toward the dragon queen who had promised the Freeze would not claim a single child to hunger. She intended to honor that pledge with her very flesh before she let famine breach her realm. Southward, caravans already crawled, ox carts packed with arbor oranges, wagons sleighshod for mud, mule trains laden with northern rye, all marked by the phoenix coins stamped on canvas tags. Somewhere amid the slow thunder of hooves and iron-rimmed wheels marched a quiet miracle, the daughters of 1,000 villages traveling as licensed grainwrights, authorized to audit granaries and distribute surplus where need burned hottest. They wore no armor, only plain wool with the queen's womb brooch. Yet in the wake of their passing, storehouses unlocked like stubborn hearts, and rumor of their fairness cooled tempers that once blazed into riot at the first whisper of tax. Rhaenyra banked Syrax into the climbing sun, turning toward the frost-withered north. She had slept but an hour in the thick hearth warmth of Harrenhal's east tower, restless with thoughts of this journey's end. The Frostfang's prophet, the coal-eyed king, whose sermons stirred wildlings to dream of dragon slaughter and crown seizing. Intelligence painted him as a towering man in sable wool, eyes black as obsidian, speaking in tongues of fire and night. Some claimed he bore a shattered starstone that hissed when moonlight touched it. Others swore ravens perched on his shoulders and whispered names of every babe born south of the wall. Prophecy again, always prophecy, like blood seeping through linen. Rhaenyra intended to lance the wound before infection festered. She was not alone in the sky. To port flew Frostfire. Alyra Stark crouched low on the dragon's pale neck, lips set against wind. Below and behind, Baela and Tessarion escorted a convoy of sledges racing along the King's Road. Supplies, healers, fresh cloaks for Night's Watch garrisons. And further still, unseen but felt, Aegon guided a fast corvette up the western coastal route, bearing barrels of pickled kelp and smoked haddock for the wall's lesser garrison towers. Visenya traveled with him, determined to test her silent crossbows in cold air. Rhaenyra's breath plumed through her helm grill as she considered how swiftly the court had moved. The phoenix coin, minted barely a fortnight, now bought double grain north of the neck, its etched firebird glimmering reassuringly to merchants weary of clipped stag coins. The High Septon's witnesses of conscience reported only 3 street sermons denouncing the phoenix as heretical before the faithful drowned descent by buying bread from vendors who accepted the new tender. Market forces proved a subtler cudgel than Dragonflame. Yet money could not silence fanaticism beyond civilization's pale. Ravens from Eastwatch spoke of wildlings forging pikes from salvaged anchor chains, chanting of a fire-taker who would claim the sky beasts. Rhaenyra trusted the wall and its rangers, but she remembered how easily Caraxes once flew over stone and gate during the dance. Walls failed where wings triumphed. Syrax shrieked. Far ahead, the wall's chalk-white spine sprawled across World's Edge like a sleeping leviathan. The sky above it was an iron lid, clouds bruised violet. Columns of black smoke smeared horizon just beyond the Shadow Tower, signal beacons lit by Lord Cregan's snow. Attack or summons? Rhaenyra tightened reins, whispers of prophecy swirling behind her eyes. The Shadow Tower's courtyard boiled with activity when Syrax alighted. Black-clad brothers hurried between armories and donkey-pulled sledges. Lord Cregan Snow, now thick-bearded, half his youthful brown stripped with silver, greeted Rhaenyra below the ramparts. Snowflakes spangled his braids. He bowed, then thrust a parchment roll into her gauntlet. "Your Grace, the coal-eyed king comes," he rumbled. "He leads 4,000 free folk, not raiders, pilgrims. They will not breach our gate. They demand parley with the queen herself." Rhaenyra unrolled the parchment. Scrawled runes of the old tongue ringed a crude drawing. A dragon split by a spear of black glass. Beneath, in shaky common, "Let the she-crowned bring her chosen serpent, else we tear down her frozen teeth and burn her children's bones to warm the world." The signature, a black smear. She studied the ink, smelling resin and pine pitch used in deep forest. No maester's hand. "When?" she asked. "By tomorrow's moonrise," Cregan said. "They've camped beyond the gorge. Women, children, sledges of furs. They believe he'll lead them south to fields you stole for womb-spawned lords." The Lord Commander's eyes held weary mirth. "I'd like to put a blade in his gut, but blood on snow births legends. Best you show him history's teeth instead." Rhaenyra's jaw set. "We parley," she said, "but not upon his threat." She pointed to Frostfire circling overhead. "Tell him the queen waits at the gorge edge at dawn. No weapons but guest gift. He must bring 3 elders unarmed. I bring my voice and my dragon. 1 dragon, not 3. If he refuses, we fly over his host and break their spirit. Cregan nodded. I'll send word. And if he crosses cunning with coward, we'll man the ballistae. Night fell quickly. Fires guttered along the battlements, reflected in Syrax's eyes. Rhaenyra sat with brothers of the watch in their mess hall, iron bowls of onion broth steaming. She listened to gossip of white wolf packs haunting the haunted forest, of star-strange lights flickering even at midday. Men expected portents when thrones shifted. She poured them wine and spoke plain tales of Dorne's new aqueducts, of the Lannisport dyewives who paid sons and daughters equally. Some scoffed, but their grip on spoons eased. Fear melted in mundane talk of taxes and taverns. Alira joined later, smelling of pine tar from inspecting arrow reserves. She sat close. I felt him, Rhaenyra, she murmured, voice low as crackling peat. Out there beyond the tree line, a hatred like frostbite creeping under mail. Rhaenyra clasped her forearm. Tomorrow we thaw it or we cauterize. Dawn's brimstone glow seeped across a sky scraped raw by wind. Rhaenyra waited with Syrax perched upon a granite outcropping beside the gorge. Frostfire dozed on a further ridge, present, but distant enough to appear neutral. Rangers patrolled the towers yet kept bows slung, black pennons fluttering. Across the vast chasm stood the coal-eyed king. He appeared younger than rumor, a wiry stature swaddled in patchworked wolf pelts, black hair plaited with bone charms. His eyes indeed resembled coal, glossy, depthless, reflecting no light. Beside him huddled 2 elders, a matron whose face bore soot tattoos, and a towering one-armed man clad in raven feathers. Behind them waited thousands, forming a wavering line on the snow ridge, spears planted like saplings. They had built no siege ladders, no fire barrels. Pilgrims, yes, but desperate ones. Rhaenyra stepped to the very cliff's lip. The wind whipped her cloak around dragon-scale cuirass. I am Rhaenyra of House Targaryen, she called, voice carrying across the void. Queen of Westeros, protector of the realm, mother of change. You requested parley. Speak. The coal-eyed king raised a hand. A hush swept his army. He cupped that hand around mouth and answered, voice thunderous. I am Eswektar, son of Sigvar, walker of black frosts, descendant of the Dusk Age. We come because the sky flames with lies. You chain beasts of fire and call yourself just. We suffer endless night beyond your wall. Give your dragons to the cold tribes, or we feast on your charred bones. Murmurs rippled behind Rhaenyra. Night's watch brothers shifting. She lifted a palm. Stillness. Then she laughed. Not derision. Pure, golden amusement that echoed off icy ramparts. You speak of bones and feasts? Once, men south of this wall said the same to my mother's mother when dragons first dwindled. War followed, and ash-choked fields and children starved. I learned from their folly. She gestured to the caravan roads visible in Far Valley, wagons creeping north. Today, daughters carry grain and sons shovel canals because dragons guard peace, not plunder. YGTR spread arms. Peace for your kin, storm for ours. Winter devours. Give us flame to push back night. Rhaenyra inhaled air so cold it sliced lungs. Flame is knowledge, she called. I will send teachers to your tribes, maesters hardened to cold, smiths to share steelcraft, healers bearing herbs. I will trade amber and obsidian for mammoth hide and crystal ice. But dragons remain free, not slaves. Choose partnership and we share tomorrow. Choose war, and only cinders answer hunger. Wolves howled behind YGTR's ranks. He frowned, turning to his elders. The raven-cloaked man whispered. The matron slammed a staff, and sparks danced where it struck frost. Maybe flint shards, maybe something older. YGTR faced her again. Words warm lips, not bellies, he shouted. Show gift now, or we march south until we feast on golden wheat. Rhaenyra's heart drummed. She signaled. From an escort sledge, rangers rolled forward a sealed oak chest onto the ice shelf half-span between ridges. close enough for wildlings to reach. She beckoned elder matron forward. After hesitation, she stepped down slope, staff clacking. "Chest holds seeds," Rhaenyra said, voice gentler. "Winter wheat bred by scholars of Highgarden to sprout in frost-thin soils. Also smith's kits for forging iron plows. Take them, plant them, survive without blade stealing." She unhooked a necklace, Valyrian steel links woven with a shard of Syrax's scale, and tossed it across the chasm. It arced over the abyss, catching sunlight before landing at SYGTRYGGR's feet. Gasps rose. "A covenant token," she said. "So long as wildlings bearing that scale tread west of the gorge, no arrow shall fly at them, if they bear no sharpened steel. Betray this, flame follows." Silence. The matron bent, opened the chest. Golden seeds spilled like stardust across her gnarled fingers. Her breath hitched. SYGTRYGGR trembled. A man torn between myth and need. "You keep dragon," he growled, voice cracking. "But give life to children?" He looked at the raven-cloaked elder, who nodded once, grim. Slowly, SYGTRYGGR knelt. "We take gift. We give peace for moon's turning. If frost devils still gnaw, we speak again." Rhaenyra inclined her head. "We speak as equals, not devils and prey." She motioned. Rangers raised barrels of dried fish, rolled them near the chest. The matron lifted a seed handful to lips, whispered ancient words, then poured them into fur pouch. She extended staff across the gap, the gesture of guest right. Rhaenyra reached with gloved hand, touched carved wood. A spark leapt, harmless, as flint char met dragon scale. Covenant sealed. The wildling host exhaled like one creature. Spears lowered. Some children darted, laughing, to collect stray seeds dancing on wind. SYGTRYGGR donned the scale necklace. For the first time, Rhaenyra saw sorrow in his coal eyes, sorrow, and maybe relief. He raised fist. "Let the Queen of Fire and the tribes of night share dawn," he declared. Cheers rolled. Frostfire roared approval. Syrax answered, an echo across centuries of hatred melting in a single bargain. Snow waned by noon. Inside Shadow Tower's subdued hall, Rhaenyra and Cregan Snow inked the Frostseed Treaty. Wildling clans would escort crown teachers through skirling passes. The crown would deliver 200 seed chests each thaw. In return, the tribes would man a roving watch along the gorge's edge. A living alarm bell should strange shadows rise. The matron, a healer named Brynja Sootmark, signed with charcoal, then insisted on gifting Rhaenyra a talisman made of raven skull and weirwood chip. "Foreseeing darkness yet sowing light," she said in thick common. Alyra Stark wept quietly, recalling northern songs of night and Bride of Fire. Baela clasped her cousin's wrist. "Your mother just saved 10,000 lives," she whispered. "Let tears bless, not break." Rhaenyra barely rested. Letters flew south on raven wings. One to Aegon, north safe. Task Frostseed convoys yearly. Prepare Granary Beacon Program extension to Skirling Pass. Another to Grand Maester Idarla. Need treatise on frostwheat cultivation. Embed wildling herbal lore. Another to Nymeria Sand. Secure narrow sea convoy to deliver whalebone sled parts. Wildling traders eager for craft. She ended each missive with a stylized phoenix, wings outstretched across continent. Her reign's living seal. Night Watch brothers roasted seal meat that evening. Wildling envoys shared fermented goat's milk. Songs tangled, one ballad of the ice dragon Velker, one of Queen Nyra's phoenix coin, and new verse was born, half old tongue, half common, telling of seeds brighter than embers in snow. The south beckoned. Storms of governance seldom paused. Rhaenyra's return flight carried her over the riverlands, where thaw-swollen tributaries glittered. She touched down at Riverrun to inspect dike repairs. Lady Menisa's daughter oversaw teams of engineers, both sexes, all apprenticed under Dornish mathematicians. Rhaenyra praised the work and commissioned an academy of hydrology to be built on an islet below the confluence. She named it Aemon's Anabranch, honoring a brother who died in flame but whose memory could irrigate life now. In King's Landing she found the maiden vault hung with banners of sapphire and jade. Aegon and Visenya had returned early, escorting a langy troop of glassblowers who gifted stained crystal lanterns shaped as phoenixes. Light from these creations refracted in crystalline sprays along vaulted walls. At their center stood the new phoenix coin mold, silver steel dies etched so fine even a gnat's eyelash would rattle between grooves. Visenya ran tests, her crossbow-callous thumbs inking sample slugs. She displayed one to her mother. On one side the firebird, on the other a map of Westeros ringed by 6 smaller firebirds, each representing Baela, Alyra, Nymeria, Johanna, Idarla, Sabria, small but vital to the whole. Rhaenyra kissed her daughter's brow. "You captured their worth in metal," she said. Aegon stepped up, eyes gleaming. "And we minted enough for crown moot tribute chests," he added, "ready to unveil on your 55th name day." He hesitated, then produced her sealed bequest scroll. "But, Mother, the crown moot of shared flame, are you certain you would cede regency so soon?" She studied his earnest face. "Power welded to one hand bends until it shatters. Ours must rest on many." She cupped his cheek. "I won't vanish, my son. I will simply shift from helm to keel, guiding, not steering." Tears rimmed his violet eyes, but he nodded. "Then I accept, though the weight feels mountains." She smiled. "Mountains can be tunneled by rivers." Time quickened, as it does when future finds its groove. The Stepstone's pirates dissolved under combined patrols of Braavosi and Crown, enticed by half-toll profits. The Harbor League inscribed the Phoenix on its charter. In Oldtown, the Witnesses of Conscience opened the Vault of Mercy, a hospital where female chirurgeons practiced alongside Septon healers. The High Septon blessed it publicly, his earlier resistance eroded by popular devotion. Frost wheat sprouted beyond the wall. Rangers reported green shoots piercing black loam under Brynja Sootmark's chanting. Wildling children learned to pronounce photosynthesis from Maester Scrolls, mischief sparkling in eyes at so grand a word. Yet new storms brewed. In the Somerset Isles of the Summer Sea, Spice Princes whispered of forming a League of Sons to challenge what they called the Queen's Contagion. They funded pamphlets distributed in lists, claiming daughters' enfranchisement led to barren wombs and unnatural storms. Rhaenyra convened council. Nymeria advocated sending spies. Johanna proposed cutting spice trade duties to undermine princes' coffers. Visenya suggested flooding lysine markets with crossbow patents free for female craftsfolk to ferment internal dissent. Rhaenyra approved all 3. War had many fronts, but some were fought with gold, some with rumors, some with dreams shaped in metal. At dusk that day, she walked alone along the freshly paved Dragon Promenade, formerly the charred hill of the Dragon Pit, now lined with dogwood trees and lamplighter posts. Children played Queen's Market, trading carved phoenix tokens, hawking pretend grain. She bought a wooden egg for a copper and asked the girl vendor her name. "Alicent," the child said, fearless. Rhaenyra's heart clenched at ghosts. She pressed the phoenix into the girl's palm. "Plant it," she said, "and see what grows." That night she dreamed. Ashes swirling into a whirlpool. Then up from center rose a firebird, wings of starlight, singing a high keening note that cracked the sky. She woke calm, understanding. Legacy is song, not stone. It passes ear to ear, generation to generation, each singer adding new harmony. Her 55th name day dawned under canary skies. Bells pealed from September of Baelor to the river wharves. Delegations streamed into the Heartfire arena. Lords, ladies, guildmasters, fisher matriarchs, wildling elders in starched furs, even the Sea Lord of Braavos in purple velvet. The Iron Throne remained veiled in its velvet tomb. Instead, a circular dais awaited, emblazoned with the Queen's womb inside a phoenix halo. Rhaenyra entered no crown upon her silvered head. She wore a simple tunic of dyed dusk blue and a girdle patterned with braided wheat stalks. Serac soared overhead but landed outside the arena. Today, she wanted mortals' eyes on mortal affairs. A hush fell. She addressed the multitude. Spoke of years remembered, the smoke of King's Landing's ruination, the hush at Highgarden when witness threatened war, the frost on wildling cheeks thawed by seed hope. She spoke of each counselor. Bela's courage, Alira's census of mercy, Nymeria's tongue like quicksilver forging tiar. Edie's, Johanna's golden ledgers balancing coin and compassion. Idarla's questing science, Sabria's arrows defending widow roads. She spoke of children born free to dream. Then she unrolled the crown moot charter of shared flame. It proclaimed a triarchate, Aegon and Visenya ruling as co-monarchs under the oversight of a rotating speaker chosen annually from the 12 Queens' Council. Majority decisions would bind the realm. A supermajority could override royal veto. Dragons would answer to the Triarchate Guard, an order sworn to realm over blood. She, Rhaenyra, would bear the title Torchmother, Advisor Emeritus. Gasps, then applause rolled like surf. She produced a small iron circlet inset with fragments of sunrise obsidian, Aegon's crown, and a sister circlet of moon silver and lapis, Visenya's. She placed them upon their heads. She stepped back. The arena erupted, phoenix lanterns shooting beams that shattered into prism motes, swirling above like migratory starlings. Aegon took the dais. His inaugural decree, abolishment of debtors' servitude across all 7 kingdoms, replaced by structured guild labor with wage. Visenya followed, decree of artisan academies in every holdfast of more than 50 hearths, open to both sexes, funded by Phoenix coin tithe. Their voices rang clear, unmarred by trepidation. Rhaenyra's chest swelled, tears bright. She sensed decades of ghosts, Lucerys, Joffrey, Jackery's father Harwin, even Alicent's distant worry watching. She mouthed a silent benediction. Syrax roared, and for a heartbeat the world sounded a victory older than conquest. A promise kept. Seasons spun. Quick winter yielded to vervain spring. Frostseed harvest fed tens of thousands beyond the wall. Wildling clans carved phoenix shapes upon bark, marking trade paths. Spices of Somerset Isles eventually flooded Westerosi ports, but their princes found daughters running warehouses. Talk of League of Suns drowned by profits under new tariffs drafted by Lady Johanna's grandchildren. Across the Summer Sea, the goddess shrine of Noth introduced a phoenix mosaic, crediting the woman queen who forbade the whip. Rhaenyra aged, hair turned bone white, but mind sharpened like a well-stropped quill. She lectured at Eamon's Annabranch Academy, teaching policy from first-hand scars. She advised healers mapping plague patterns. She visited the dragon pit to sing lullabies to Dawn's clutch of albino hatchlings. Sometimes she joined Brynja beyond the wall, watching Frostwheat sway while Auroras pirouette overhead. They spoke few words. Friendship needed none. In her 83rd year, as her breath began to rattle like wind through reeds, she summoned Aegon, Visenya, and all 12 queens, now some gray, some replaced by daughters, to the Hall of Memories. She asked to view once more the Iron Throne. They drew back the velvet. It remained jagged, char-lined from Balerian's forging and Carrick's ruin during the dance. She limped toward it, touched a bent, rusted blade. Symbol of fear, she whispered. Made mighty by fire, humbled by mothers. She motioned. 30 smiths stepped forward, sliding the throne onto newly crafted rollers. A great chain anchored to Syrax's harness tightened. The dragon heaved. Dragon song echoed across the keep as the Iron Throne was borne aloft, carried down the hill to the Dragon Pit Plateau. There, before a throng of city folk, Rhaenyra commanded its final transformation. Blades melted in alchemist crucibles, slag poured into ingot casts. From those ingots would rise 1,000 plowshares for crown fields, 1,000 quills for library scribes, 1,000 needles for hospital surgeons. The crowd wept and cheered as molten iron hissed into molds shaped like phoenix wings. Rhaenyra watched, leaning on Visenya's arm. "No more throne of blades," she murmured. "Let power rest in hands of many, not on points of one." She died 1 month later, asleep under Syrax's folded wing on Dragonstone's highest terrace, sea breeze fluttering parchment of her final dictation. A poem to the wind, thanking it for carrying children's laughter farther than any crown. The realm mourned. Bells tolled from White Harbor to Starfall. Yet grief was tempered by purpose. Every year on her death's anniversary, Phoenix festival lanterns ascended over every holdfast, tiny paper birds gilded by candle. Children recited new riddles. Which burns brighter, one dragon or many hearts? The answer soared luminous against night. Centuries hence, balladeers would debate whether Rhaenyra Targaryen were saint or stateswoman, sorceress or realist. Chronicles would cite her treaties, her coins, her wars of words, her lone moment upon the gorge where seeds outshone steel. But in nurseries and hearth circles, simple folk kept a truer tale, of a queen who listened, who bled, who laughed at prophecy, and who broke a chair of swords into plowshares so that harvests, not heirs, defined greatness. And somewhere in haunted forests draped in eternal frost, wildlings still planted golden grain that shimmered like dragon flame against snow. When they harvested under shimmering auroras, they raised loaves toward the south and spoke a blessing passed through generations. To Rhaenyra the just, whose fire warmed even the cold dark, may our daughters fly as far, may our sons walk beside them, and may the phoenix rise in every heart that seeks dawn. So it was, so it would be.